Chess YouTube, welcome back. In today's video, I'm actually analyzing one of my latest online training games that I played this past week on chess.com. Now, in the past, I really haven't analyzed too many of my own games on this channel, but that is about to change in a very big way. Now, for this video right here, I want to show you how easy chess can be, literally how easy the game of chess can be when you just follow the basic ideas I show you in this video right here in the opening and in the middle game. All right, in the game, I opened 1d4, a solid move. Of course, White's two best moves are d4 and e4. And here, Black, the main moves for Black after d4 are, of course, d5 and knight f6. But instead, Black here goes d6, a little bit passive. And here, I just go e4, seizing the center of the board. Of course, the center is the squares here, d4, e4, e5, and d5. In chess, you always want to fight for control of these squares right here in the opening. Now, here, Black, he actually goes knight d7. This move is a little bit weird, and I was thrown off guard a little bit. I wasn't quite sure what Black was going to do. So with that in mind here, as White, I just keep developing. Knight c3, very classical chess here. Now, Black goes e5. This is his idea. He's trying to capture on e4, potentially, and beyond that, if I trade on e5, Black's idea, now with the knight on d7, the d file is clogged up, and therefore after d takes, then d takes, I can't trade queens on d8. That would be good for me, but now the knight on d7 is blocking the d file, and overall, this is Black's idea here. He's trying to go e5 in this manner and trying to keep the queens on the board. So not a bad idea, but again, overall, a little bit passive. So Black's threat here is e takes d4. I just go knight f3, defending that pawn very, very simply. Now Black goes knight g to f6. And here, I really have to figure out, how do I want to develop here? Of course, in the opening phase of the game, your number one priority is just developing each piece one time and then castling your king, usually on the king's side. So here I continue. Bishop c4, a very solid move. My idea is very simple. Bishop c4, castles, and then maybe bishop e3, queen d2, and rook a d1, and so on, getting all of my pieces out into the center of the board. So Black goes bishop e7, a solid move. I castle, again, following basic chess principles. Develop each piece one time, castle your king, develop the other side, and then attack. Now here, Black goes c6, a solid move. The idea being he's trying to control d5. Maybe he wants to go queen c7 or b6 later, but overall, Black here is starting to delay castling, and castling first would be a simpler move for a beginner. Now here, I'm already castled. What should I be doing in this position? Well, I start with the move a4, gaining space on the queen side. What is the idea? Well, here, Black potentially is threatening b5. I'm not a fan of that. I don't want to allow that. Therefore, a4 is sort of prophylaxis against that idea. Now, Black goes b5. I will capture twice and win a pawn. Therefore, that idea for Black is temporarily shut down. Now here, Black probably should be castling here. That is by far the most flexible move here, but instead, Black goes queen c7. Now, this move itself is not that bad, but already it's showing Black here is just violating basic opening principles. If you're a beginner, it's simply not a good idea. Why would you delay castling? The queen on c7 really isn't doing all that much to help Black so far. So castling would have been a little bit more precise. Now here, my idea, I want to go bishop e3 and then queen d2, and then connect the rooks, and then maybe rook f to e1 and rook a d1, as you're going to see in the game. The problem with going bishop e3 here, though, right away, is Black can go knight g4, pressuring this bishop, and that would be super, super annoying for me. In the opening, generally speaking, the bishops are a little more important than the knights, and you don't want to lose a bishop like this that early in the opening. Therefore, here, instead of that, I simply went for the move h3 here, guarding g4, setting up my plan of bishop e3 and then queen d2. Again, we're still in the opening. We have not connected the rooks yet, and therefore my number one priority right here is connect the rooks, develop each piece one time, and then try to find some way to attack, ideally in the center. Now here, Black castles, finally. I go rook e1, a very solid move. The rook's quite active on the e file, and Black goes a5. Now, this move itself is not that bad, but it does mean Black, he does lose some flexibility on the queen side. Black here, one of his ideas may be a6 and then b5 later, and once you go a5 like this, you kind of lose your chance to go a6 then b5. So now the b5 advance will be very, very hard for Black to achieve. And already out of the opening, I have quite a big advantage here. So how do I continue? Well, I just go with my simple plan. Bishop e3, Black goes rook e8, and then here I go queen d2. a very simple plan. Again, my idea is queen d2, rook a d1, and then maybe d5, trying to attack in the center of the board. Now, I do want to point out my one big weakness right now. I have two. One, my first one, really, you know, I have a hard time punishing my opponent's mistakes. And here, black goes rook to e8. And in this position, I can actually go for the move knight g5, pressuring f7 in the spirit of the fried liver attack. And this move right here would have been very, very strong. The idea being, if black goes back to f8 with the rook, that is the best move. Then I could go f4, launching sort of an attack on the king side and really giving white a huge edge here, followed by perhaps h6, knight f3, and so on, and I can kind of do whatever I want in this position. So that would have been the strongest idea. Now, in the game, it's a blitz game. Instead of that, I simply went queen d2, sticking to my plan of development. So queen d2, a solid idea, intending rook a d1, and so on. Now here, black goes bishop f8, a solid move, getting his bishop off the 7th rank and opening up the scope of this rook on e8. Now here, white again has a few ideas. Knight g5 is playable, but black can go rook e7, defending f7, and black is fine. Instead, rook a d1 is my move. And look at this position right here. If you're a beginner, this is basically an ideal position for white out of the opening. I have each piece developed one single time. I have perfect control of the center of the board. My rooks are connected. They're on e1 and d1. My queen and bishop here are perfectly placed, as is this bishop right here. And my knight's on c3 and f3. This is literally a perfect opening for white in terms of just basic development. And now, once you develop each piece in the opening, your next plan is you have to find some way to attack the opponent, some way to apply pressure on their position. So let's see how I choose to do that in this game right here. Well, from here, black goes h6, not a bad idea, guarding g5, stopping once and for all knight g5 ideas. And in this position, I have to find some sort of plan. There's no real way to further develop. Each piece is developed. So what am I going to do? Well, in this position, one of the basic ideas in chess is this thing called CTTS, checks, captures, threats, and then strategy. So whenever your opponent plays a move, you should first be thinking, do I have any checks? Do I have any captures? Do I have any attacks? And beyond that, if there are none, then you start thinking about strategy. So in this position, let's go with checks. Do I have any checks against the king? First of all, bishop takes f7 is a check, but I lose a piece. There's no good follow-up. Therefore, that would not be a good idea. What about captures? Here, I can capture on e5, but black does have that defended. If I take on e5, d takes e5, and black takes back, black is kind of doing fine here. I lose my space advantage in the center, and black is doing just fine. Therefore, that's not a very good idea. Now, threats. Do I have any good threats here? What can I attack right here? Well, if I go d5, I'm technically threatening c6. Now, that's not that big of a threat, but d5 in itself, gaining space, is certainly a good candidate move. And I have all my pieces here centralized very, very well. Therefore, d5 is kind of front and center, a move I'm thinking about. Beyond that, if I don't want to go d5, maybe this bishop here is vulnerable. Maybe I want to go to f1 or a2 or something like that. Or beyond that, maybe my plan could include perhaps knight h2 and then f4, something like that. But overall, I quite like the idea of d5 here. It's a very solid way to play, gaining space in the center, and d5 was my move in this game. Now here, what should black be doing? Well, black, same thing. Checks, captures, and attacks. What should does he have any of those right here? Well, first of all, this bishop on c4 is hanging. Black can threaten the bishop with the move knight to b6. And it turns out that is the best move right here. So he has no checks against the king. Can he attack anything? Well, yes, he can. Knight b6 pressures the bishop, and it turns out it also pressures d5, and that would be the best idea from black. For example, here, black can pretty much solve a lot of his problems. Knight b6, you attack the bishop. It has to go somewhere. Now here, bishop b3 is a solid square. After all, it does defend a4 and d5. And now black can trade on d5, and the best move for white is actually e takes d5, and then from there, black can go bishop f5. Developing his one problem piece here is light-squared bishop. So black, with that one move, knight b6 in this sequence, I mean, white is still a little better, but black would have a pretty decent game overall. Now, Instead of that, in the game, my opponent, Goijos, I'm not sure how to say it, but anyway, Goijos here, he makes a big strategic mistake. He takes on d5 with the pawn. Now, why is this a mistake? Well, it's very simple. I'm going to get this very, very strong outpost on d5 one way or another for my pieces, and from this outpost, I'm going to be able to basically just strangle black in this game. Now, first of all, here, as white, first of all, if I take with the knight, knight takes d5, then black takes the bishop, and I'm down a piece, and I lose the game. So first of all, blunder check. What's going on? Black is threatening the bishop with the pawn and the queen. Therefore, this bishop here, it's got to go somewhere. Where should it go? Well, the best move, and the move I played in the game, is just bishop takes d5 right here, winning this pawn on the d5 square. Now, here, black technically can win the bishop pair. Black can trade on d5, and I would have to recapture with the knight. And black does have two bishops after that. However, I have this wonderful outpost on d5, and overall, that should give me a little bit of an edge, and that is what happens. Knight takes d5, then knight takes, I pressure the queen goes to c6. Now here, with this move, what is black doing? He's pressuring the pawn on a4. Therefore, all I do is white, very, very simple, b3, support the pawn, and again, I've got a beautiful game here. Now black, in this position, black makes a blunder. He just goes knight to b6. I mean, believe it or not, 1,861 level players online blunder pieces left and right. And actually, as white or as black, I'm quite bad at punishing these mistakes. But in this game, I did find it right away. Black here just blundered this knight. His idea is he's trying to pressure d5. He's also trying to bring out this bishop potentially to, say, e6. These are all good ideas, but if that's what he wanted to do, instead of that, knight f6 was the right way forward. Instead, after knight to b6 here, black is just getting blown off the board. I capture the knight, knight takes b6, I pressure the rook and the bishop, and from here, this game is relatively easy, but I do want to show you the how I like to win one games here. So black goes rook a6. What do? Well, one, I can capture on c8, but if I do that, black will recapture with the rook, and from there, black does get some activity on the c file. It's not that bad for white, but instead of that, knight c4. I drop back, keep my very good knight here. I pressure d6 and the pawn on a5. So even though I'm winning here, I am trying to put maximum pressure on my opponent. Now, what should black do? Well, first of all, black can capture on e4. Again, checks, captures, and threats. There are no checks for black, but black can capture this pawn. However, if he does that, I have an idea. If he takes here, queen takes e4, then my idea here is the discovered attack, bishop takes h6, and look at this. The queen on e4 is now under attack by the rook. I gain back the pawn and have a great game. So black here, he doesn't trade on e4, likely because of that idea. Now instead, he goes bishop e6, a solid idea, finally getting this last piece into the game, and here I simply trade on a5 and win this pawn. Simple chess. You see a free pawn, you take it, knight takes a5, very, very simple stuff, pressuring the queen. Now the computer says there are stronger moves here, but I quite like knight takes a5, winning the free pawn. Now here, black actually goes rook takes a6. Believe it or not, at the 1800 level, people do this, and here, all you got to do is say, how can I punish this move? Well, let's capture the rook and win material. Now from here, black takes on c2, not a bad idea. But again, I'm up so much material here. I have the extra piece, I had the exchange. I am just crushing black here. So, queen b6, threatening b7. Black takes on e4, queen takes e4, not a bad idea. But now, I had the very simple idea. Bishop takes h6, winning the free pawn on the h6 square. Now, of course, the queen on e4 is under attack. Black's got to move it, queen c6. And now black here's offering the queen trade. And I say, you know what? I'm up 5 pawns, essentially. I mean, I'm up the entire rook here. I have 2 rooks versus 1. Therefore, heading into an endgame should be a very easy way to win. So I trade queens. Queen takes, b takes. And now here we have an endgame. Now, first of all, again, blunder check. My bishop on h6 is hanging. If I don't do anything about that, I will lose the bishop. Therefore, here, bishop e3, I drop it back to the e3 square, and now we have the endgame, and what's my plan? Well, in the endgame, your number one priority, essentially, is pushing your pawns down the board and trying to promote to a queen. Now here, my best pawn is this a4 pawn, the pass pawn. So my entire strategy here is perhaps rook a1, and then basically pushing this pawn down the board as fast as I can. So let's see how I do it. f6, b4, gaining space, bishop b3, threatening this pawn and the rook. Therefore, rook a1 defends both of these pieces in one go. Now, rook b8, rook e b1 pressures the bishop. It must go somewhere. Bishop c2, rook b2, bishop e4. And here, black is threatening this knight. However, I calculated out, if black takes that and I take back, it's simply not a big deal. First of all, I have the extra rook. Second of all, the real fight here is for these queenside pawns. Again, my plan, I want to push these pawns as fast as possible. Therefore, my move is just a5, gaining space. Then I go a6, and then I go a7, pushing all the way to a7. And now the first step of my plan is complete. I push the pawn all the way to a7, and now all I have to do is b5, and if black takes, I take back, and then I go to the b8 square, threatening potentially this rook on a8, and I win the game essentially. So, d4, bishop d2, king f7, b5, c takes, rook takes. My entire plan is just coming to fruition here. My next step is rook b8, trying to trade off this rook. So, bishop d3, rook b8, bishop e4, rook takes, bishop takes. Not a bad idea by black, trying to defend with the bishop. But now, look at this. Black doesn't have a rook. All I have to do is slide over this rook, infiltrate on b8, and try to force through this pawn to a queen. So, rook b1, bishop c5, rook b8, bishop d5, and now a8, promote to a queen. Black must take, I take back, and here, look at this. I have the minor piece, the rook. Black has, the pawns here that are slightly dangerous, but beyond that, white is completely winning. So, e4, knight e1, e3, f takes, d takes. Now, black does have this defended. However, if I can swing my king over to the e2 square, that pawn is permanently blockaded, and I'm just winning here. So, bishop c3, f5, king f1, f4, king e2, g5, knight f3. And now look at this. I have this very easy blockade on the light squares. These pawns are never, ever getting through. And from here, it's just a matter of time to win the game. So give the king a check, rook a6, pin. And here, my idea is, even after king d5, I'm up so much material, I just trade the rook for the bishop, the king takes, then I go bishop f6. And here, literally, all of these pawns are about to fall. I'm going to win the game, and for that reason here, black simply resigns on the spot. A very well-played game by myself, if I do say so. All right, to review what happened in this game, I opened 1d4. Black here should be fighting for the center. He does not do that. Instead, d6, and I immediately seize it, e4. And from here, I have fantastic central control. Black goes knight d7, kind of a weird move. I go knight c3, continuing, e5, knight f3, and then finally knight g to f6. And we do have the Philidor defense. Now, against the Philidor, there are two main ways to play as white. One is bishop c4 and castles. The other is the more aggressive idea of either h3 or rook g1 and then a g4 advance. Now, in this game, I go bishop c4, a solid idea. I simply castle. Then I go a4, blocking down the b5 advance. Very simple stuff. Then I go here, rook e1, h3, guarding g4. Setting up the idea of bishop e3, then queen d2. Then I go rook e1, then bishop e3. Now, in this position, I did miss the idea of knight g5, but queen d2 also a fine move. I go rook a d1, developing. And in this position right here, again, white, every single piece is just perfectly placed. It's a beautiful setup. And I am ready for, say, either d5 or perhaps knight h2 and then f4. And that is what happens here. I simply go d5 on the next move, and from here, black already makes a big mistake. He takes on d5, I take back with the bishop, and black takes back again, I take back, and from here, in this position, my knight on d5 is just completely dominating the game. I guard b6, and from here, black already chokes under the pressure. I go b3, defending a4, and black here, he simply chokes. Knight b6, blundering a piece, and this happens all the time at 1800, 1900, even 2000 ELO. Your opponents are blundering pieces left and right, and if you can just punish your opponent's mistakes just like this, knight takes b6, winning the piece. It is so easy to win a chess when you play like this, when you play classical central chess, develop, castle, fight for the center, and then punish your opponent's mistakes. When you play like this, chess is just so easy. All right, Chess YouTube, hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below if you enjoyed me analyzing my own games like this. I'm planning on doing a lot more of these videos coming up starting this week into next week and so on. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I really do hope you guys saw how easy chess can be when you play with just basic opening and middle game principles. And by the way, if you want to learn directly from me, Dr. Mike Chess, I have a free school community. The link is in the description below. I'm happy to have you there. I'm doing free group coaching calls every single weekend. I'm building a course out for you guys. I'm building everything you need to reach 2,000 ELO online. So if you want to learn directly from me, get coached by me for free, the link is in the description below, and I'll see you in the next video.